I have two succulents here that are showing signs of rot, and I'm hoping that we can still somehow save them. Hi everyone, this is Leslie of Succulent Social, and today we have two echeverias here with us that are showing signs of rotting. So as you can see here, this exotica have leaves that have dark spots, which is a clear indication of rot at some point or overwatering. Then we also have here an Echeveria tutti frutti that a few days ago have decided to just um, lose all its leaves, and here we've got 3 leaves left. So what we're going to do is we'll try to save them from the rot. Actually, there are various ways of trying to save them, and the action that you will take really depends on how bad the situation is per plant. Um, the most common way or method is to just repot them basically, and just because a lot of them are overwatered, therefore they would need some fresh soil that are dry, that are well draining, and usually that will resolve the situation. But again, it could be just as simple as that, or to an extent, it could happen that the rot is so bad that you have to do a beheading or a head chop. If, for example, the rot is already way too up the stem, or sometimes really you can't really do anything about it, then you have to say goodbye to your succulents. But as I clean up this plant here, if you're in a situation wherein you have a succulent that has rot, first thing you need to be reminded of is don't beat yourself up about it. It happens to everyone. It happens to nurseries, big nurseries, it happens to seasoned growers. And don't blame yourself, because sometimes rotting could happen or could have started from the nursery where you bought them from, and it just so happened that the signs are showing up now that they're under your care. And so now let's just first clean this up. So I've already removed them from their pot. And what we're trying to do here is to really inspect how much rot has already happened. So as I can see here, of course, the leaves, the lower leaves have already dark spots, but the stems are actually looking good. Once I have removed all those dried leaves at the bottom, then I could see that the stem actually is okay, which is good. It means that the situation is not too bad. We might just have to repot it. But you might ask, what actually causes root rot in general? Most common actually is overwatering. And as we know, succulents thrive more with a bit of neglect. The less care, the better sometimes. The succulents are hardy and they have high tolerance to extreme conditions like being underwatered, for example. They have a way of coping to this situation. So, for example, some succulents, they shoot out aerial roots from the stem to get more humidity from the air. So they have a natural way to try to survive, even if you give them less care. However, of course, you have to know the signs when they're already asking for help. But going back to overwatering, as you know, succulents store water in their leaves, in their stems, and therefore, if they already have enough drink, if you're still giving them water, then the tendency is to be soaked in water. The roots will not be able to cope up with the amount of water that we're giving them, and thus result to rot. The best way to actually remember, the best thing to remember when doing watering is it is easier to save an underwatered succulent than an overwatered one. So this one, for example, we have to do a more drastic approach because it's overwatered. And the best way really to water your succulents is try to do a soak and dry method, which is you give them a good soak when their soil is fully dried. Now let's go to our tutti frutti here, which I think has more worse situation. So we're gonna look at this and look at the soil. It's very, very wet actually. And I'm filming this in September, and we've just been out of our winter, which is a season that has always a lot of rot happening um, in our plants, and that's also another reason, very common thing to happen during cold season or during winter. That is the reason why some of the people actually put their succulents indoor under a grow light during winter, maybe for the countries that have snow. But for us, we don't have snow here in Melbourne, Australia. We just have really, really cold nights or days as well. But that's why most of our succulents are just outside. But of course, the downside is sometimes we will have situations as this wherein we will experience rot. Um, to be very honest with you, I don't really have high hopes with this Tutti Frutti because as I scrape a little bit of the rot in the stem, we can see that it actually has developed fully in the whole of the stem, and we don't have a part that we can head chop because the top is all completely gone. So we'll try our best. What I'm gonna do is I will scrape off all those parts that are rotted. I'm sorry, I'm using my tweezers here, but if you just because I don't have high hopes for this one, but if you are, say for example, cutting apart a portion of your plants that have rots, just use a clean knife and cut off that area that have rot up until the part where you can see a fresh stem that has no signs, no spots, no nothing. So even a tiny, tiny drop, spot of rot, you have to remove it. Otherwise, they will just spread again through the stem. All right, 5 days have already passed since we have removed this from the pot. And as you can see, the roots are already completely dried. Even some of the lower leaves have dried, which is just common whenever they are not too hydrated. And what I'm using here is a ceramic pot, which has a very big hole at the bottom, which is very good because it will provide good drainage. It is important that you either use a new pot or you could reuse the pot where it was previously potted, so long as you clean it and just to make sure that you remove all the old soil and there will be no remnants of any fungus that might be in that particular soil. So the soil that I'm using here now is a dry um, succulent soil mix. We make our own mix, and this is composed of potting soil, some perlite, um, we have sand, we have a bit of coco coir, and also grit because this really makes it well draining. And as you can see, I'm also using a pot with a size that is just one size bigger than the diameter of this exotica. Basically, it just gives a little bit more space for the growth, but not too big to kind of stress it or overwhelm it. Because, of course, the bigger the pot that you put them into, the more soil and therefore the more moisture or water that is retained in the soil, and that could overwhelm them. That could be too much for them. That could lead to overwatering or being drenched in water for too long, and of course, another rot. So we don't want that. All right, so we now have our potted exotica, and what I'm going to do now is to just put a little bit of river pebbles at the top of the soil. This is optional, but I'm just putting it just so that when the time comes that I'm watering them already, the lower leaves of the succulents will not be touching the moist soil. It is also very important to not water them yet at this stage. Wait about a week or even 10 days until they're fully settled, and then you can introduce a little bit of water, and then you can just progress from there. Also, they need bright light, but not direct light. So an area where they can be maybe partially shaded, but they can still get light would be best. Morning sun would be best if ever. And then keep them in a well ventilated area. So we don't want them to be in a very humid spot or very dense air. So air circulation would be good. So now here is our exotica, and then I will just move on to the tutti frutti. I'm gonna put it in the same pot, but I've already cleaned that. And as I do it, I just want to discuss with you some signs of rotting that you should be looking out for in your plants. Well, basically, dark brown or black spots on the lower leaves is a clear indication of that. If stems are visible, you could also check if they're showing any darkened areas. If the leaves are turning translucent or yellowish, it's a sign of overwatering. Or sometimes you will see some burst or crack in the leaves. That's when they cannot contain the water and they just burst. Or if the leaves are just falling off easily, that is a good indication that there's something wrong somewhere. So we have already potted both our exotica and the tutti frutti, and at this stage we just hope for the best and hopefully that they will overcome the rot, and yeah, we shall see from there. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope we were able to share something with you about how to combat rot in your succulents. I hope you would like this video, and please, if you haven't done so, subscribe to our channel, as we'd love to share with you more of our succulent videos. Until next time, bye for now and keep safe.